A stranger sat next to me on the train and knew everything about my life. Chapter 1. The Man on the Train. I was exhausted. The kind of exhaustion that settled into your bones, making every movement feel like wading through quicksand. The rhythmic hum of the train tracks was almost hypnotic, lulling me into a trance as I stared out the window at the darkening skyline. Work had drained me, as it always did, and the idea of another lonely night in my apartment didn't make things any better. The train car wasn't too crowded, just a handful of passengers scattered throughout, each lost in their own world. A man with headphones tapping at his laptop, a woman flipping through a magazine, a teenager absorbed in his phone, thumbs flying across the screen. Nothing out of the ordinary. And then, at the next stop, he got on. At first, he didn't seem remarkable. Just another passenger, dressed in a dark gray coat, hands stuffed into his pockets as he scanned the car. But the moment his gaze landed on me, something shifted. He didn't hesitate. He walked straight toward me and, without a word, sat down in the empty seat beside me. I felt an immediate sense of unease. The train was far from full. There were plenty of other seats. Yet, for some reason, he chose the one right next to me. I shifted slightly, angling my body away from him, but he didn't seem to notice or didn't care. Instead, he turned his head toward me, a slow, deliberate movement, and spoke in a voice that sent a chill down my spine. "You look tired, Daniel." My breath caught in my throat. That was my name. I had never seen this man before in my life, yet he spoke to me like we were old friends. I forced a nervous chuckle, trying to mask my growing anxiety. "Do we know each other?" The man smiled. It was a small, knowing smile, one that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Oh, I know a lot about you." The train rumbled on, oblivious to the sudden, creeping dread that coiled in my stomach. I swallowed hard, keeping my voice level. "That's funny. I don't think we've met." He tilted his head slightly, as if considering my words, then nodded. "No, I suppose we haven't. Not officially." The way he said it, "not officially," sent another shiver down my spine. I glanced around the train car, suddenly hyper-aware of how isolated we were. No one else was paying attention. The man with the laptop had put on his noise-canceling headphones. The woman with the magazine was flipping through the pages mindlessly. The teenager was still glued to his phone. No one was watching. No one noticed. I turned back to the stranger, my hands tightening into fists in my lap. "Who are you?" His smile didn't waver. If anything, it deepened, as if he had been waiting for me to ask. "Someone who knows you better than you know yourself." The train lights flickered. I felt the hair on the back of my neck rise. This was wrong. Everything about this was wrong. I wanted to get up, move to another seat, maybe even get off at the next stop, but something kept me rooted in place. It was the way he was looking at me, like he was waiting for something, like he knew exactly what I was going to do before I did it. I forced myself to break eye contact, gripping my phone in my pocket, ready to text someone, anyone. But when I glanced down at the screen, my blood turned to ice. One new notification, a text message from an unknown number. My hands trembled as I tapped it open. The message was short, simple. "Don't get off the train." My head snapped up, my heart hammering against my ribs. The stranger was still watching me. And then, as if he could read my thoughts, he leaned in slightly and whispered for words that made my blood run cold. I sent the text. Chapter 2. Nowhere to Run. The air in the train car felt suffocating. I stared at my phone, my brain struggling to process what had just happened. The message, "Don't get off the train," was still glowing on my screen, mocking me. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. But what was I supposed to say? "Who are you? How did you get my number?" No, that wasn't a real question burning in my mind. How do you know what I'm going to do before I do it? My pulse pounded against my temples. Slowly, I lifted my gaze back to the man beside me. He was still smiling. Not a normal, friendly smile. It was the kind of smile a person gives when they know something you don't, something terrifying. I swallowed hard. My throat was dry. "How?" My voice cracked. "I cleared it and tried again. How did you send me that text? The man's eyes glimmered with amusement. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he leaned back in his seat, crossing one leg over the other, as if we were simply two old friends catching up. Let's just say I have certain abilities. I clenched my phone tighter. That's not an answer. His smile widened. No, it's not. The train rattled over the tracks, the rhythmic clatter filling the silence between us. I forced myself to take slow, steady breaths, but it didn't help. My skin was crawling with unease. I could feel him studying me, watching. I glanced at the passengers around us. The woman with the magazine had nodded off, her head tilted back against the seat. The man with the laptop was still lost in his work, his fingers flying over the keyboard. The teenager with the phone hadn't looked up once. No one else seemed to notice what was happening. It was just me and him. I needed to get off this train. I checked the time, 10 minutes until my stop. I could handle 10 minutes. I just had to ignore him. I shifted my body away, fixing my eyes on the window, watching the city lights blur past. But then his voice, soft, steady, and way too close, cut through the noise. You won't get off at your stop. My body went rigid. I turned to him slowly, my stomach twisting. Excuse me? He tilted his head. You won't get off at your stop, Daniel. You'll stay on the train. My skin prickled. You don't know that. His smile didn't falter. Don't I? The train lights flickered again. A shadow passed over his face. Just for a split second. It was so brief, I almost thought I imagined it. Almost. I licked my lips, trying to keep my voice steady. Why would I stay on the train? His smile faded, and then, for the first time since he sat beside me, his expression changed. It was subtle, so subtle that if I hadn't been watching him so closely, I might have missed it, but I didn't. His eyes darkened, the amusement draining from his face. And when he spoke again, his voice was lower, almost regretful, because you don't have a choice. A chill shot down my spine. I gripped the edge of my seat, my knuckles turning white. This wasn't a game. This wasn't some weird coincidence. This man, whoever he was, knew something I didn't. And whatever it was bad. I needed to get off this train. Now, I shot up from my seat, reaching for the overhead handle to steady myself. But before I could move, a hand clamped around my wrist. I froze. The stranger hadn't moved an inch. His other hand was still resting on his knee, but his grip on my wrist was like iron, cold, unnaturally strong. My breath caught in my throat. Sit down, Daniel. His voice wasn't loud. It wasn't threatening. But there was something in the way he said it that made my blood turn to ice. I tried to pull away, but his grip tightened just enough to remind me that he was in control. I swallowed hard, my heartbeat hammering in my ears. And then, ding, the train's intercom crackled to life. Next stop, Lexington Street. My stop. The train began to slow, the city lights outside shifting as we approached the platform. I wrenched my arm free, my heart pounding in my chest. I turned toward the door, ready to make a run for it. And then, the lights went out. For a split second, the train was plunged into complete and utter darkness. I heard someone gasp, a few muffled whispers, and then the lights flickered back on. I turned to the door. The platform was gone. The train hadn't stopped. We were still moving, faster. The announcement had said Lexington Street, but we had blown right past it. I spun back to the stranger, my breath coming in short, panic gasps. He was still sitting there, still smiling, as if he had expected this, as if he had known all along. I stumbled back, gripping the seat in front of me to steady myself. My phone vibrated in my hand. Another message. I told you. I looked up at him, my stomach dropping. What the hell is happening? His expression softened. And then, in a voice almost too quiet to hear over the roar of the speeding train, he whispered, "We've passed the point of no return." Chapter 3. No Way Back. The train hurtled forward, faster than it ever should have. I gripped the seat in front of me, my knuckles white. The world outside the window had changed, gone were the familiar streets and buildings. Instead, a thick, swirling fog wrapped around the train like grasping fingers, stretching endlessly into the darkness. Panic clawed at my chest. This wasn't right. This wasn't real. I turned back to the man beside me. He hadn't moved. He was still sitting there, calm as ever, watching me with that same infuriating smile. "What did you do?" My voice came out hoarse, almost a whisper. His smile didn't waver. "I told you, you wouldn't be getting off." The air inside the train had changed. Thicker, heavier. I could hear my own breath, fast and shallow, each inhale dragging like lead through my lungs. My phone vibrated again. Another message. "Don't fight it. It's already too late." My stomach twisted. This wasn't just some deranged stranger messing with me. Something bigger was happening. I looked around at the other passengers, searching for a sign that I wasn't losing my mind. The woman with the magazine was still there, but something was off. Her head was tilted at an unnatural angle, her eyes staring wide and glassy at the ceiling. The man with the laptop wasn't typing anymore. His hands were frozen over the keyboard, his mouth slightly open like he had just been about to speak. The teenager with the phone, his screen wasn't moving. I took a step forward. "Hey!" The lights flickered, and then in perfect unison, they all turned their heads toward me. Every single passenger. Their eyes were blank, their faces eerily still. I staggered back, my heart hammering against my ribs. What the hell? And then, just as suddenly as they had moved, they all froze again. Silent, motionless, like puppets with their strings cut. My breath came in ragged gasps. I turned back to the man beside me, desperate for answers. What is this? What's happening to them? His expression softened just slightly. They're not real. My stomach dropped. What? He gestured toward them. They never were. I shook my head, refusing to believe it. No, I saw them get on. I watched them. They were real. Were they? I turned back to the passengers. Their lifeless faces, their frozen bodies. I had been so sure. But now, I couldn't remember a single detail about any of them. Not their voices, not their movements. Nothing. It was as if they'd been placed there, props in a scene I hadn't realized I was part of. I swallowed hard, my throat dry. Why? I whispered. Why is this happening? The man leaned forward slightly. His voice was softer now, almost pitying. Because you're starting to remember. The train jolted violently. I stumbled, gripping the metal pole beside me for balance. And then, a sound, a low, distorted whisper. It came from the intercom above, crackling through the speakers. At first, I couldn't make out the words. But then, not supposed to be here. The train lurched again, the lights dimming to a dull, sickly yellow. My breath hitched. The voice, it was mine. I turned to the intercom, my pulse thundering in my ears. The static crackled again, warping the sound. "Daniel, you have to wake up." A sharp pain shot through my skull. I dropped to my knees, gripping my head as memories that weren't mine, began flooding in. A hospital room, a heart monitor beeping, a voice, my voice whispering, "I don't belong here." I gasped, the world spinning around me. The stranger crouched beside me, watching. "You're starting to see it, aren't you?" I clenched my teeth. "See what?" He tilted his head. "The truth." The train screeched. Metal groaned as the walls began to distort, stretching too far, too thin. The windows twisted, warping into endless tunnels of dark. I scrambled to my feet. "Make it stop?" The man shook his head. "I can't." I grabbed his collar, desperation clawing at my chest. "Then tell me how to get off this train." For the first time, his smile faded. His voice was quiet when he spoke. "You already did." The words hit me like ice. My grip loosened. "What?" The train shuddered. The fog outside thickened, swallowing the world whole. The intercom crackled one last time. And then, in my own voice, it whispered, "Wake up." Chapter 4, The Other Side. The train jerked, the force nearly knocking me off my feet. I gripped the nearest pole, my breath coming in sharp gasps. The walls trembled, flickering between solid steel and something else. A hallway, a hospital bed, the beep of a heart monitor. I saw it for a split second. Then the train snapped back into place, metal groaning under invisible pressure. I turned to the man beside me, my voice hoarse. "What do you mean I already did?" His expression was unreadable. "Daniel, you've been here before." My mind reeled. No, that wasn't possible. I would remember. I would have known. But something deep inside me twisted at his words. Because a part of me already did. I shook my head violently. "You're lying." He exhaled, almost as if he pitied me. "You always say that." The train lurched again, the lights flickering erratically. The passengers, the frozen, lifeless passengers, began to change. Their faces melted, shifting into blurry smears, like unfinished paintings. Their bodies twitched in unnatural jerks, their limbs elongating, contorting. They weren't human anymore. A low, garbled sound filled the car, a glitching, inhuman whisper. I pressed myself against the cold metal, my pulse hammering in my ears. What's happening to them? The stranger didn't look away. They were never supposed to last this long. The lights flickered again, and in that half-second of darkness, the figures moved. When the light returned, they were closer, a dozen grotesque, featureless shapes looming over me, my body locked up, my breath freezing in my throat. The lights blinked out, a breath on my neck, a whisper impossibly close. "Daniel, you don't belong here." My heart stopped. The lights snapped back on. They were gone. The train car was empty, except for me and the stranger. I staggered back, my legs barely holding me up. My entire body was drenched in cold sweat. I need to get off this train." The man tilted his head. "You can—" My breath hitched. "How?" He leaned forward, his voice lower than before. "You need to remember." I clenched my fists. "Remember what?" A pause. Then, the crash. A sharp, blinding pain exploded behind my eyes. I fell to my knees, clutching my skull as a flood of images tore through my mind. Rain. Headlights. The sound of screeching brakes. A sudden, horrifying impact. The train tracks, twisting, warping, and then the final image, my own body, lying motionless, cold, lifeless. My stomach twisted. I tried to breathe, but my chest was too tight. My vision blurred as a realization crashed into me with the force of a tidal wave. I died. The words barely left my lips. The man nodded, his face unreadable. "Yes." The train shuddered violently. The fog outside the windows grew thicker, denser, pressing against the glass like something alive. I couldn't move, couldn't think. This isn't real. None of this is real. I turned to him, my voice shaking. "Then what is this?" He was silent for a moment. Then, "A choice." I swallowed hard. "A choice." The train lurched again, faster, more unstable. "You can stay," he said slowly, "or you can wake up." The word sent a chill through me. I turned back to the window. For the first time since this nightmare began, I saw something beyond the fog. A figure, standing at the edge of the darkness. It was me, pale, unmoving, eyes closed, like a reflection trapped on the other side of a mirror. And then, the intercom crackled again. A single, final message. "Last stop." The train jerked violently. The doors slid open. The man beside me stood up. "This is it, Daniel." I turned to him, my pulse pounding. "Where do they go?" I whispered. "The ones who stay?" His eyes darkened. "They don't leave the train." I looked at the open doors, at the void beyond, then at my own reflection, waiting for me. I took a breath and stepped forward. Chapter 5, the final stop. My foot hovered over the threshold. Beyond the train doors, there was nothing, a vast, swirling void of darkness. The fog roiled and shifted, shapes moving within it like something alive. And then there was me. My reflection stood in the mist, unmoving, eyes closed. I swallowed hard. Behind me, the train shuddered violently, the lights flickering, the metal groaning under the strain of something unseen. The train was falling apart. "You need to decide," the man said, his voice calm despite the chaos around us. I turned to him. "If I step out, I wake up." His expression remained unreadable. "If you step out, you move on." I clenched my jaw. "Move on to where?" A pause. Then, "That depends on where you really are." I didn't like that answer. I turned back to the figure in the mist. Me, lying still, lifeless. A memory flashed through my mind: the accident, the headlights, the screech of metal, the impact. I gritted my teeth. No, if I was dead, why did I feel so alive? I took a step back, away from the doors. The stranger's eyes darkened. "Daniel." "No," I said firmly. "This doesn't make sense." The train let out a horrific screeching sound, like steel being torn apart. I clenched my fists. I was in a car crash. I remember that. But this train, these people, this isn't death. The man exhaled slowly. "Then what is it?" I opened my mouth and froze, because I knew the answer. The flashes of the hospital, the heart monitor, the oxygen mask. This wasn't death. This was the in-between. I wasn't dead yet. I was trapped. The man studied my face. He knew I had figured it out. The train shuddered harder, the walls flickering, distorting between metal and something else, something like veins, pulsing beneath paper-thin skin. I took another step back. "If I step out there," I said, my voice steady, "I don't wake up. I die." The stranger's lips pressed into a thin line. "You're making a mistake." The light snapped off. In the darkness, I heard something moving. Not him. Something else. A chorus of distorted, whispering voices filled the air. The passengers. I felt them closing in, felt their cold, unnatural presence pressing against me. Then the light snapped back on. I spun around. The seats were full again. Dozens of featureless passengers, staring straight ahead, like mannequins waiting, but one of them was different. At the very back of the car, slumped over in a seat, was me, my real body. I felt my stomach drop. That was my way out, not the doors. Me. I turned back to the stranger, my heart racing. "You lied." His expression remained cold. "I told you the truth. You just didn't ask the right questions." The train lurched. A loud, metallic groan filled the air, the walls buckling. I didn't have time to argue. I ran. Shoving past the faceless passengers, I pushed toward the back of the train. The air grew thicker, heavier, like moving through water. They started moving. Hands reached out, grasping, clawing. Their bodies jerked, twisting unnaturally. I fought against them, my breath ragged. One of them grabbed my wrist. The cold burned, spreading through my veins like ice. I screamed, ripping away, stumbling forward. I was so close. My body, my real body, was right there, just inches away. The train began to collapse. The walls peeled away, revealing the endless void outside. The stranger still stood by the doors, watching. "You won't get another chance," he called. I ignored him. I reached out. My fingers brushed my own shoulder. And then, everything went dark. I woke up gasping. A blinding white light filled my vision. The beeping of a heart monitor pounded in my ears. I wasn't on the train. I was in a hospital. The air smelled like antiseptic. Tubes and wires were attached to my body. My body. I let out a shaky breath. A voice called my name. I turned. My mother was standing by the bed, eyes red from crying. "Daniel," she whispered. I swallowed hard. "Mom." Her face crumpled, and she burst into tears. A doctor rushed into the room, nurses following close behind. Their voices blurred together. Something about being unconscious, about the accident. I barely heard them, because something wasn't right. In the reflection of the heart monitor, I saw the train. Just for a second, a flicker, a glimpse of the passengers, still sitting there, still waiting. And in the very back, the stranger, watching me, smiling, The monitor beeped faster. I squeezed my eyes shut. When I opened them again, the train was gone. But I knew it wasn't over, because somewhere in the space between life and death, the train was still moving. And one day, it might come back for me. The end.